Moving on to item D. SAU administrative services provided to Hooksett, requested by David, please.
Yes, if you refer to Roman numeral 7B, I provided a packet of information for you. Hopefully this was provided electronically so you had a chance to watch some of the videos that I've referenced here. During, I believe, our December meeting, the superintendent informed the board that he did not work for Hooksett, that he worked for the SAU and he provides us administrative services. So I thought it was proper for me to bring my dissatisfaction with a few of those services here to this board as he has made that statement. And I have 3 examples that I would like to bring forth tonight that as an individual board member I struggle with. But yet I do not have any authority as the superintendent does not work for us. The first one, which I titled Hardship, is something that occurred before I was on the board, but I was present at these meetings. And the first example is from our October 4th, 2011 minutes. And in the minutes, the superintendent made a statement that Hooksett will honor the tuition contract, which states that Hooksett High School age students will attend Manchester High School unless they demonstrate some sort of hardship. If you read this, it indicates that the contract states hardship. I've had 2 discussions with the superintendent about this entry in the minutes, and both times he has refused to revisit the record or to change this. I think we're all pretty familiar with the contract with Manchester. I think we're all pretty familiar with the fact that it does not require hardship. So I had a frustration when this was brought forward. I thought it was a mistake that would be remedied, but I was told that it was not. My next issue is something that happened very, very recently with our board. And this is on the second page, and it's called 2012-2013 math funding. On November 20th of 2012, during our school board meeting, there was discussion of reducing our budget by $500,000. And one of the suggestions to do this was to take out $150,000, which was going to pay for our first half of our math curriculum. And through that discussion, it was mentioned that we might be able to pay for this out of fund balance. That was the only discussion of using fund balance for the $150,000. You can see here that we later went on to motion to reduce the $500,000. There was also a couple of teacher movements that went in that same motion. At no time did the Hooksett board approve the use of fund balance money to pay for the $150,000. As we move forward, the analysis of the budget stated that we did. And that's the next example. Balance to be purchased with the 2013 budget fund balance. That didn't concern me quite as much as what happened as we approached our recent meeting a couple of weeks ago, when we were going to be faced with approving the math program. I asked for information that would be shown that night, and I was given a PowerPoint, and the second to the last slide of the PowerPoint is printed here, and it says that the funding 2012, 2013, 148,346, 11/20/12 board meeting. And I asked what that meant. And I was told that that money was approved to be spent at the 11/20 meeting. And at that point, I went back and reviewed the minutes, reviewed the video, and yes, there was a conversation. There was many conversations. And it was stated that we might be able to pay for it, depending on how the budget went. But it was not in a motion. What concerns me most is the last example, because this was a document that was presented at the May 7th meeting, a public document, and this was to the budget adjustments. And in this document says, pre-purchase of half of the proposed math program as approved by the board at the November 20th, 2000 board meeting. And it was not. And the record clearly shows that it was not. So there's further email here. I emailed Dr. Littlefield. I asked him to change the slide before the meeting. I emailed Mrs. Lassard. I asked her to show me where the approval took place. She cited the motion which did not contain any type of fund balance language at all. I had a phone conversation, which I have put my recollection in here. Dr. Littlefield's differs. But in that, my accounting of that phone conversation is he told me that when he, Mrs. Pollack, and Mrs. Lassard left the meeting on November 20th, they had the impression that it had been approved. And I made the point that you cannot use the word approved on a document for the school board by an impression. We've all had impressions of things happening, but we have to go back to the record. We continued into that meeting with those documents. And I think that we misrepresented to the public the actions that the board had previously taken. And I also would counter, if you were looking at the November of 20th minutes, how would you even form a motion to approve fund balance 6 months in the future when you wouldn't know what lines you were going to move? We didn't even know at that point what math program we were going to buy. So I think the words approved were wrong. I understand that people can make mistakes, but when it was brought to the attention of the administration, no action was taken. And we proceeded to that meeting and showed that presentation, which I believe to be not correct. The last piece of information that I'd like to bring forward concerns our policy book. And I sent you all a video about this, and I hope that you got a chance to watch it. It's 16 minutes of a meeting that we conducted. It's not edited. It's just the way that it happened. And I think you can tell in that video exactly what happened. There was really two problems that we faced with the policy book. One, when Mr. Liskars came on the board at his orientation, he asked for he was given the policy book, and he asked if it was online or electronic. And he was told by Dr. Littlefield, no, it's not. And Mr. Liskard said that he would like that to be a goal of his to make that electronic. At a meeting, in fact, he made a motion to scan the whole book to make it electronic. During that meeting, there was no mention of these documents existing electronically. In fact, there was a right-to-know file, and the person was told that the book does not exist electronically. In a following meeting, which is portrayed in that video that I sent you, Dr. Littlefield defends the fact that his answer was correct, even though every policy in that book is in electronic format and was delivered, that because the separator pages and the index pages were not electronic, that he was correct in his answer that the book did not exist electronically. I would agree with Dr. Littlefield if we were having a technical discussion. The problem that I have as a school board member is we are lay people. The administration is the professional people, and particularly with a new board member coming on, the administration needs to assist and explain. And to cling to a technicality about separator pages and indexes to the point that the new board member creates a lengthy motion. We have a lengthy discussion about scanning, all of which time Dr. Littlefield is present and never mentions that the policies already exist, to me, is not good administrative service to our board. And that is all I have. Thank you.
David, is there, so it's just informational for us? Is there a motion to something? Is there, I know you were present, I believe you were present at our February review of the superintendent. When we do that review, I would expect that this would be something that we would certainly take up at that time. I know that I've met individually with the superintendent about not the same thing, but other things, to express different concerns. I don't know if that's happened for you or not. Is there, what are you trying to do for us here?
Well, I'd like to say that this is not about Dr. Littlefield, Mrs. Lassard. I am approaching this as the way it was explained to us, that we and you receive administrative services provided by this board. And I am concerned with the services in these examples. I am not saying that there's a blanket problem here. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying in these cases, which I brought forth as a board member, and I think are clearly supported by the record, the actions were not corrected. And it never bothers me when people make mistakes, because we all do. But when pointed out to us, and when substantiated by the record, we must correct those mistakes. And these are 3 examples that are standing that were not corrected. And this is nothing personal, this is nothing about that. But if the superintendent or administration worked for us, we would be having this discussion with them, or I would hope we would. But I'm having it with this board because we are the employer of the administration and we're responsible for their services.